All right, everyone. Thank you again for joining us for our first breakout session of the final day of gCON. We have a really exciting presentation for you this afternoon. I'm personally really excited about it. It's about a really interesting topic. We have Will Ackerly, the co-founder and CTO of Virtru, here to talk to us about data encryption in Gmail and Google Apps. So I'm going to introduce him in just a few minutes. But before I do, there's a couple of things that I'd like to cover before we go ahead and get started. So just like the rest of our breakout sessions throughout this week, we are going to use the Showcase app to direct you to a couple of links. It'll make it really easy to fill out the form at the end of the session. So just as a reminder, please stick around until the end of the session to fill out the form for the free giveaways and to mark your attendance for the session. So Virtru has been kind enough to give away a 6-month subscription to Verve Coffee Roasters. So if you really like coffee, that's definitely something you want to check out. And we're also going to be giving away a Samsung Chromebook too for this session as well. So like I said, please stick around until the end of the session to put down your information for those giveaways. And we are going to be doing questions outside of the Hangout. So if you have any questions for Will when this presentation is over, please go to the official gCON Google Plus community and submit your questions there, and Will hang around for about 30 minutes to answer your questions as they come in. So I'll provide a link to that community in just a minute in case you haven't joined already. So with that, I think that pretty much covers everything that I have to go over before we get started. So I'd like to go ahead and turn the presentation over to Will, and he's gonna talk to us about data encryption in Gmail and Google Apps. So thanks a lot, Will. Take it away.
Thanks, Andrew. So as Andrew mentioned, I am Will Ackerly, and the CTO of Virtru, and we at Virtru are working on making email encryption for both email and files easy to use and strong. My background is you started as electrical engineer at the National Security Agency, working on strong encryption technologies. And after I left to start Virtru, we're really focusing on trying to bring strong email encryption to an everyday user in a way that's easy to use, because that was really the biggest barrier that I saw to the use of and deployment of strong encryption. So, as a small business owner at this point, day to day, we have a strong use for protecting information in email. If we're emailing partners or customers, or even just sending employment info or healthcare info, that's something that we're doing in email on a pretty regular basis. Also, we have NDAs and contracts that we're sending out, and without encryption, that's good. Those would otherwise be unprotected. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and share my slides and dive into this. What I'm going to do first is give you a little bit of a background on encryption in general, and pull back the covers on the different types of encryption. I want to cover briefly the alternatives that you can use in the Google Apps environment, and I'm going to give you a short demo of the tools that we have and make available to you. The most basic form of encryption that
Hey,
talked
Will,
about.
can I stop you for a second?
Yeah.
It looks like your slides aren't showing up right now. Can you make sure that are you showing the right screen?
Sure. Sorry about that.
No, it's okay.
Can you see our video?
Yeah, we still see the feed.
Okay, let me try that one more time.
No problem. There we go.
All right. Sorry about that, guys.
There we go. Good to go.
Okay. So there's several different basic kinds of encryption technology out there. The one that's talked about probably the most by folks like Google are point-to-point encryption. So this is essentially the green lock that you get in your browser when you go to send an email. But just because you have an encrypted connection to Google doesn't mean that the subsequent links in that sharing chain from the sender to the receiver are fully protected. And in fact, Google has spent a lot of time doing this sort of shame exercise around trying to get providers on the recipient ends to encrypt their links. So of those 3 links that I'm showing you right now, you only have the direct ability to know whether or not that first link is encrypted. Even if that link is encrypted, though, the email itself stays unencrypted. And so every time that that email is sent from your computer to a server or back from a server to another computer, it's creating unencrypted, unprotected copies of that data. One way of solving that problem is by using portal-based encryption. And Zix and the Google Apps message encryption, which has been packaged, which is a packaging of Zix, helps to solve that problem. And what that does is, instead of sending an email directly to the recipient, it instead will send a link to the recipient. So one thing to note here is that link goes back to a portal which that recipient must follow a link to, and that's yet another copy of unencrypted data that must be well protected. And so there's another party, another service that must put a lot of work into making sure that that's protected well. From the recipient's end, every time that they click on an email sent using the system, they have to click a link, and if they haven't created an account with the portal, they're going to have to go through that process of creating an account and generating a brand new password. And after they do that, they can then go to the portal to consume your email message. But persistently, what your recipients are going to experience is a 2-system solution. So they're going to be switching back and forth from mail client to portal in order to have protected communications. And what this portal does is helps enforce the point-to-point encryption, those links. But the content of your email is going to stay unprotected through those chains in the vast majority of cases. So the third option is what a lot of people call end-to-end encryption. And we call it that because before it ever leaves the sender's computer, before it ever leaves your computer, it will be, the message itself is encrypted and protected. And what that means is it doesn't matter where that message is, it will stay encrypted and will only be readable by the recipient. And at that point, you can build a solution where the recipient doesn't need to leave their inbox. They can read and send messages right within their email application if the end-to-end protection has been deployed that way. So some examples of that include S-MIME, PGP, and what we have at Virtru. One of the big advantages here is if a server is compromised, those messages are not vulnerable. This is very different from the previous solutions that we discussed. So what does this mean for us? Basically, it means that while previously technologies for strong encryption have been out of reach for all but the most technically sophisticated, because as the need and the understanding that we need strong protections has risen, we've seen emerging easier to use strong encryption technologies. There are several different motivations for this. One is that generally speaking, we have seen a lot of loss and theft of data directly within a company. That can be, just internal risk, negligence, insider threat, but also external hackers. Generally within the cybersecurity realm, we've on an almost seemingly daily basis, we see the fact that third-party service providers get hacked, or accounts get leaked, passwords, etc. And then the third bucket is regulations, and regulations like HIPAA for healthcare that mandate that you protect these kinds of information that realistically is on a very regular basis being communicated over email. So one of the regulatory requirements, obviously, I just mentioned is HIPAA. So health records and personally identifiable information is something that is shared on a regular basis. Even at Virtru, running a small business, we have enrolled our employees in health plans, and so we're sending this information all the time. As a doctor, you could be engaging with hospitals and specialists, but also you want to be able to engage directly with patients. And with traditional email, it's hard to do without violating the HIPAA regulations. Another general category is information leaks. So we at a company have sales reps, and while they might be working for us today and they might have customer lists, they may leave and join a competitor. And so information might be leaked. They might send this to their personal email address and then leave. So the information that you have inside, making sure it doesn't get inappropriately shared outside, is another example. So in terms of the way email is sent today, the threats to the unprotected copies of email are several-fold. First, your inbox on your computer or your device is one example of a copy of the information that might be lost. The same for the recipient. And that's also true for the servers that you use or the service providers that you use, like Google, or the recipient service providers. And they all must protect those copies of emails very, very carefully in order to be able to prevent access from an unauthorized third party. So you might ask yourself, doesn't Google do this for me already? And the answer is, yeah, kind of, sort of, right? So they have been talking a lot about making email encryption mandatory within Gmail recently. But unfortunately, while that's great, it's insufficient because that's only making that first hop mandatory, right? The ability to make sure that green lock is turned on in your browser, but all those subsequent copies of the data might not be protected. So what is it going to take to make strong email encryption pervasive and used on a daily basis without a strong burden? First, it has to be really easy to use. In other words, I don't have to have a PhD in computer science. I can email anyone and not have to worry about key exchanges. And the flip side of that is anyone must be able to read these messages, right? And hopefully, ideally, they don't have to install software in order to be able to do so. And then thirdly, email encryption is all well and good, but if you can use that to provide a persistent control over their content as a part of that email encryption, that would help motivate its use and enable compliance. So at Virtru, what we've done is we've integrated strong encryption into the tools that you use every day. This includes Gmail, so you can make it as easy as Gmail. And then we've added it to other platforms like iOS and Android, so you can be mobile, and then desktop applications like Outlook, because plenty of people, while they use Google, might sync with their Outlook desktop. And then added additional features like the ability to revoke an email, have it expire, track and control forwarding, and then add capabilities so the Google admin can administer this for their domain. So instead of talking too much about it, I'll go ahead and just show you directly what it looks like. Andrew, let me know if there are any issues sharing the screen. If not, I'll go ahead. So this is my inbox for my Google account. And you can see in the upper right-hand corner I have this V. That means that I've installed the Chrome extension for Virtru, and I've added it to my email. And in fact, any of you can go to virtru.com and download the Virtru Chrome extension and use it on for your personal account for free. And what I'm going to do is email another account, and you'll notice that there's this blue bar up here, which is new. And what that is a switch, and I can turn that on, and that means that there's Virtru protection in this email. Not only will this email be protected in transit, but drafts of the email will be protected as well. So every keystroke that I type in this box is going to be fully protected. And none of the plain text is ever going to make it to a third-party server. You also notice that I can do things like, right from here, disable forwarding and set an expiration. So I'm going to make this expire in 3 days. Because in email attachments are so important, we also added the ability to encrypt any file type. So I'm going to attach my PowerPoint presentation. You'll notice it turned into a .tdf. So that's our file protection wrapper. And then because it's on, I can hit secure send, and it'll encrypt and send. One thing to note is if I wanted to change my mind, I would be able to go to my sent items, pull up my email, and revoke. I'll show you that in just a second. So hopefully this arrives in my inbox. Here it is. I also have Virtru installed on this computer as well. So I don't have to go to a portal. I don't have to sign up for a new account. And it plugs directly into your Gmail identity. And if I want to, I can just download that attachment right from here. So because it's protected with our wrapper and the way that we allow for, also allow you to decrypt and download in one fell swoop. So I hit decrypt and I can save the attachment to my drive. I can also forward. And you'll notice from here we also have this the switch here as well. And it warned me, actually I just clicked on it too fast, but it warned me that forwarding was disabled, so this chain actually won't forward correctly. I'm going to turn disabling back on, or sorry, forwarding back on, and then I'll actually be able to forward this time. So let me just go ahead and revoke, and I can show you what that looks like. This is all real time. Now you'll ask, well, what about the admin, and what about forwarding, and how do I monitor that? So what we provided is a dashboard. Now if I want to, I can go into my email and click on an email and see who's forwarded to whom. And I have the ability to do a granular revocation. So even if one person sent to somebody else, and if that's someone who I don't want to be able to see this email, this isn't the ability. You have the ability to audit what's happening to your information. And I can do a revoke on an individual and save changes. And what happens is by default we then turn on disabling. We disable forwarding so that subsequent forwards are not possible. You'll notice that I have this admin mode switch up here, and that's for administrators that have installed the Google Apps plugin for Virtru, and that gives you the ability to administer all the emails across your entire domain. And it also allows you to send protected emails to things like distribution groups and support for aliases. So that really is the long and short of it in terms of the Virtru capabilities. We also have, like I mentioned, full-fledged email applications for iOS and Android, and support for MacMail and Outlook Desktop 2007 and 2010. So regardless of where you might be, you can send these emails. And then one more thing to cover right before I wrap up is the first-time recipient experience. So let's pretend I don't have the extension and I've never seen this before. So what I'm going to do is actually pull my Virtru extension and then show you what it looks like when I read an email for the first time. So whereas normally, let me make sure this is enabled. Normally, if I had the extension, I would see the email right here. This is what I would see as a first-time user. And so I have the ability just to click to a secure reader where the encrypted email content is actually embedded in the URL so that the browser has access to it. And then I can read the email right here from within a web browser. And then if I wish to install the extension, I can, for free, get Virtru and add it to whatever application I want. So I'll be on the forum answering questions that anyone has. Thanks for your time.
All right, thanks a lot, Will. Great presentation. Hopefully everybody learned a lot about different types of encryption in Gmail and Google Apps. Like you mentioned, Will is going to stick around in the gCON Google Plus community to answer any questions that you may have. I'm going to go ahead and put a link to that up right now. So you should see that in just a few minutes on the right-hand side of your screen in the Showcase app. So you can click on that, and then it'll take you to the Google Plus community where Will be there to answer any questions that you may have. Before we sign off, I want to make the giveaway and attendance form available to everyone as well. So that should be in the Showcase app as well on the right-hand side of your screen. So you can put down your information to get access to enter to win the Samsung Chromebook 2, the 6-month coffee subscription to Verve Coffee Roasters, and to get your free gCON T-shirt as well. So please take just a minute to fill out that quick form for us. It should take 30 seconds at least or at most, sorry, to fill it out. And before I sign off, I want to make sure that all of you had the chance to sign up for our very last session of gCON. That'll be in about 45 minutes. We'll be joined by Megan Roth from Insightly, and she's going to talk about how to make your customers your BFF with limited resources. So Insightly is a great tool for SMBs who are looking to build up that relationship with customers. So with that pretty much wraps up our presentation. With Will, I want to say thank you to Will Ackerly for joining us and putting together a great presentation. So thank you again, Will, for joining us. Thank you, everyone, for stopping by, and I hope to see you at our last breakout session in a few minutes. So thank you, everyone.